Few films have ever created this much anticipation, and no film has ever drawn you so deeply into the world of the occult.
The Prince of Darkness protects the powerful.
Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, Lisa Bonet, Angel Heart. Believe what you've heard. Rated R. Now playing at a theater near you.
Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is a review of the 1987 horror film noir film, Angel Heart. Now, before I get into sharing my thoughts on this movie, I want to give a shout out to David for requesting this review. If there's a particular film you would like to see me review, or a television show, or an anime, you name it, feel free to donate to my PayPal. The link will be in the video description down below. Now, Angel Heart is one of those films that I had heard about due to its reputation in film circles. It was widely considered to be one of the more controversial films of its era, namely for this now infamous sex scene with Mickey Rourke and a pretty young Lisa Bonet. And I could see why. I mean, it was a really racy scene for the time. And I could see why it definitely triggered a good amount of people upon this film's release. The MPAA gave the film an X rating initially until Alan Parker and some other people involved with the film wound up trimming it down enough so it could get the R rating. After all that work, though, it didn't do that well in the theater. I think it finished 4th in the box office. Yeah, it cost about $18 million to make, and it only made $17 million. So it actually lost the studio some money in the long run. It's based on a book that I haven't read called Falling Angel by William Hjortsberg. And this was one of those adaptations that had been gestating for a long time. The adaptation of Falling Angel, which wound up being Angel Heart, did not come out until 9 years after the book was published. So, Angel Heart's directed by Alan Parker, and I thought he did an awesome job with this film. This is a lavishly shot movie, despite its really dark and dingy subject matter. It's one of those films that really is a tour de force of filmmaking on pretty much every level. When it comes to shot selection, when it comes to use of lighting, when it comes to creating a particular sense of mood or atmosphere, or really bringing out the chosen aesthetic for the production. It is a visually striking film. And a good reason for that is Alan Parker's talent behind the camera. He also did a really good job getting very authentic, genuine performances from his cast. He took some unorthodox ways to get that. He was so unnerved by Robert De Niro's performance as Cypher that he just let Robert direct himself. That's how effective Robert was in this role of this mysterious evil figure named Louis Cypher. And Alan just let Robert shoot himself because he just could not take it. And that's the kind of thing that you don't hear much of nowadays, a director who just willingly lets somebody direct their own scenes. But then again, Robert De Niro at this time, I think he had already directed before, and he already had a lot of respect among his peers and a lot of trust. So there's that as well. I don't know if it was any other actor that he probably would have let them do their own thing. So it's definitely one of those things where the fact that it was De Niro probably made a significant difference. But yeah, one of the major highlights of this film is the look of it and the direction And I definitely feel this is Alan Parker's finest hour when it comes to his direction. He'll definitely be missed. He recently passed away, I think, sometime last year. And I would say out of the films that I've seen from him, this is the most impressive when it comes to his direction. It also features a screenplay by Allen. And this script's a bit of a mixed bag for me. On one hand, I love how eerie it is. I love how surreal it is. I love how throughout the entire movie, because of the combination of the eerie atmospheric direction and the script's pervading sense of dread, it really does have this feel of something is about to hit the fan. And they even show scenes of a fan in a dark room spinning slowly, as if it's representing the fact that something is about to hit the fan. And you're just waiting for whatever it is to occur. And I really do feel that's a testament to some of the biggest strengths of this film when it combines the visuals with the narrative to really successful heights and results. But it doesn't really go all the way with certain topics and certain ideas. It has this really intriguing concept of what it's like to be embroiled in a battle of souls, where two souls are inside one body and they're fighting for control. And it causes an identity crisis. And I think that's a really interesting thing. And the film never really goes that far with that. It just touches upon it. It just has flashes of brilliance in that regard, but never really goes all the way. It's a detective story that has a really promising character in Harry Angel, this private eye, this private detective who's hired by Louis Cypher to look for this client named Johnny Favorite. And Louis Cypher wants to find this guy because he has some business deal or something like that that hasn't been completed, and he wants to get a hold of him and figure out where he is so he can finish the deal. And I'll get into spoilers later, trust me. That's the only way you can really fully explain the film, for better or worse. And so, yeah, it's a very simple plot about Harry Angel going to try to find Johnny Favorite. That's really what it is. What happened to Johnny Favorite, or where Johnny Favorite is. And he goes all the way to Louisiana, to New Orleans, and encounters a lot of voodoo and black magic. And things just get darker and weirder along the way, and more dangerous and dark and really twisted. And the script does a good job balancing the darkness of the overall narrative. But ironically enough, the film lacks a heart. There is a sequence in the film where a heart is cut out of somebody's chest and Harry Angel finds it. And not only that, there's a very key part of the film's narrative and twist that deals with the heart. And there's so much of the film that talks about the soul and all of that. But the film is still pretty heartless and pretty soulless. I don't know if that's intentional. It very well may be, in order to continue to have this very permeating sense of dread. But regardless, it definitely does make the film nowhere near as compelling as it could be. There are times where I am disengaged with the narrative and with how things are unfolding and with the characters. And that's because it lacks a heart. It lacks a soul. Despite Mickey Rourke's best efforts with his phenomenal performance as Harry Angel, he can't make up for the lack of depth with his character. I don't really care that much about Harry Angel because I never really get to know Harry Angel. It's a great performance, and I like what Mickey Rourke is bringing to the role, but I don't really get to know that much about him, other than he's a hard-nosed private detective, and he's from Brooklyn. That's really all I get to know about this guy. And I know why it is that way because they're trying to protect the film's twist, but that's another problem that the film has. And arguably, the film's biggest issue has to do with this stretching things out to uh, not necessarily unbearable lengths, but definitely tedious lengths when it comes to trying to protect the film's twist. But going back to the whole lack of a heart, the main focus of the film is on Harry Angel. And if we got to know him a little bit more, if they didn't protect the twist so much, so then you really get to know both characters, Harry Angel and Johnny Favorite, more than what you do, then I think it might be a much more effective and compelling film as a whole. Because there are quite a few scenes and times while I'm watching this movie where I don't really care whether or not Harry Angel solves the case or he makes it out alive. And that's a problem. And I know not everybody shares that opinion, but that's ultimately how I felt. Despite Mickey Rourke's remarkable performance, he was great. But he could only do so much. And it doesn't help either that when it comes to the film's twist, the twist is pretty predictable. I mean, Louis Cypher, Lucifer. I mean, as soon as Robert De Niro showed up with fingernail claws and was talking about how the soul is like an egg, I knew immediately that he was Satan. It was obvious. And when you see scenes where Mickey Rourke is bleeding everywhere from his chest in a dark room, or the moment during the infamous sex scene with Epiphany where he almost chokes her out, you can tell that the person he's trying to find, the truth that he's trying to find, is that he is Johnny Favorite. So that twist was far too predictable to warrant such a length. This film's almost 2 hours, and after the first hour or so, it drags because you figured it out. We're just waiting for the film to catch up. And that's the issue with films anyway, that focus way too much on their twist and put so much importance on the twist and hiding the twist, because it causes the film to have serious pacing issues. Gene Siskel, who I disagree with a lot, actually put it the best. He says Alan Parker was so preoccupied with covering up the twist that he forgot how to pace the film properly. And I actually do agree with that sentiment and that criticism. I 100% agree with that. The film is too slow paced after the first hour or so because Parker was too preoccupied with the twist. The twist being that Louis Cypher is the devil and he wants Johnny Favorite's soul. Because Johnny Favorite made a deal with the devil so he could become famous. And then you try to get away from the deal by killing this soldier who turns out to be Harry Angel and taking his soul. So it's one of those things where you really kind of do see where it ultimately goes far too early into the film. That's why with this kind of plot line, it works better if it's a part of an anthology or it's a short story, because then you don't have to worry about character depth as much. You don't have to worry about pacing in the same regard as a feature film. You can have all the juicy bits, the really visceral moments, and you can focus in on covering up the twist, and it's not as detrimental to the film as a whole. But yeah, the script, it's mixed. Like I said earlier, it's a mixed bag. It's got some interesting ideas, some compelling themes. I like how it handles the occult. I like Harry Angel as a character in terms of the potential that this character has, and I like the performance by Mickey Rourke. But I think it's one of those things where I like the performance by Mickey Rourke, but I don't necessarily like the character. I don't hate the character, but I'm indifferent on the character of Harry Angel because I never really get to know him that much. And that's what it would have made scenes where he's in the mirror and he's saying, I know who I am, even more compelling and powerful, because you actually get to know who Harry Angel is on a deeper, more personal level, other than just these brief flashes. And if the film wasn't so preoccupied with covering up its twist and trying to trick the audience, then it would have been able to have those moments. But definitely one of the film's hallmarks and one of the highlights is the cast. I mean, Mickey Rourke, I've already sang his praises numerous times throughout this review, and he deserves all the praise that he could possibly get. He was really quite special in this film. One of his best performances. Robert De Niro was also very creepy, very unsettling as Louis Cypher. Lisa Bonet, I thought she did a really good job too as Epiphany. The rest of the cast, they do their jobs well. Charlotte Rampling as Cruise Mark. But the main cast is Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, and Lisa Bonet. Those are the three characters who get the most screen time. And they're the ones that, the three actors who get the most screen time. And those are the ones that ultimately do provide the film with its strongest performances. It also has a really hellish sounding score by Trevor Jones. I thought this is a very unnerving score that really fit the film well. And I mentioned earlier about the cinematography, but it bears repeating. The cinematography by Michael Saracen is spectacular. And I want to give the costume and art designers a lot of credit too for very effectively recreating the look of the 50s, because it seemed authentic. It didn't look like they were trying to make a parody or some overly stylized take on the fashion or the aesthetic of the decade. No, it felt completely accurate, and it was grimy, it was dirty, and I just really loved the overall look of the film. And it didn't even have to necessarily do strictly with the direction or the cinematography, just the look of the costumes and the production and art design, just really a treat visually. And the editing was excellent by Gary Hambling. I mean, even the end credits feature a sequence of Harry Angel descending into hell. And while, yes, some of the aspects of the plot are predictable, you've really had this kind of plot done numerous times when it comes to a guy who's investigating something and he's investigating himself, or supernatural film noir stories dealing with the devil. But there is a certain seriousness that this film has, and a certain really disturbing undertone to it that I don't feel a lot of films like this really have. It's a very unnerving film that gets under your skin and really does provide a lot of very visceral and really intense moments. The sex scene with Lisa Bonet, it's uncomfortable anyway because this character was underage, which is kind of messed up. She was 17 years old, and I think Lisa Bonet wasn't that old either when she did this. So, yeah, you have this sex scene, and then water's just pouring from the ceiling, and then it turns into blood, and they're fucking in a maelstrom of blood. It's really something else. And blood is a very key factor in this film in terms of some of the more unsettling moments. When Harry comes across Epiphany's voodoo ritual with the chicken and the sex scene and the heart that's severed from the chest, and those are really the moments that I would say stand out the most when it comes to the horror elements. I will say this, though, when it comes to the horror elements of this film, some of them are a little too corny. In particular, when Cypher has his yellow eyes and most definitely with one of the last shots, which shows one of Epiphany's children with these really corny, fake looking yellow eyes. It's laughable. That should have been cut. They should have never had that scene in the film. The film really does a great job grounding things in reality despite the supernatural aspects of the story. And then you got a baby or a toddler with yellow eyes that are clearly superimposed and look fake and don't work at all. Really, even with the aesthetic that the film was trying to go for, it was a glaringly obvious mistake. It's a little scene, but with a film like this, a little scene, especially where it's placed, does have more of an impact than it might have if it was some other kind of film that had a different tone. But yeah, I definitely wanted to point that out because I thought that was just, it was laughable. I laughed. And that's not the reaction or the, let's just say, emotion or any kind of thing that you should get from a film like this. You shouldn't be laughing at a scene that's supposed to be intense or scary. But yeah, overall, I would say it's a pretty good film. I liked it. I didn't think it was a masterpiece. I didn't love the film because I did feel it lacked a heart. Uh, didn't really get to know Harry Angel that well, so I just was very indifferent on things throughout the majority of the movie. It spent too much time with its twist and building up the twist and covering up the twist. And I feel it would have been better off not focusing so much on the twist and focusing in on other aspects of the story that are much more interesting and much more unique. But other than that and some issues of the pacing, it definitely is one of those films that is worth watching for the visuals, for the performances by Mickey Rourke, Robert De Niro, and Lisa Bonet. And I would say it's a little overlooked because this, I don't even think this even has a Blu-ray in the US. It got a 4K restoration overseas by Studio Canal, and I did check that out, and it looks great. It looks wonderful. And I'm really hoping that gets imported to the US sometime. But yeah, Angel Heart is one of those films that I think for folks that really like a lot of atmosphere and mood in their horror and are really into a lot of different themes and subtext. I think this is really going to speak to a lot of people who are really into that kind of stuff. But it does it in a way that also doesn't seem too pretentious, which a lot of films that have tons of themes and subtext in them sadly tend to do. So yeah, I would say give Angel Heart a watch sometime if the trailer interests you, or um, it sounds like something that you feel would be worth watching. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Angel Heart, and as always, I'll see you later. See ya.